even though there is a koan about heat and cold, and how do you deal with heat and cold, and basically when it's hot, be willing to be hot. When it's cold, be willing to be cold. And that is such it's so simple, and it doesn't sound like it's very helpful, but I used it muscularly during Sanzen, in the Sanzen room. And it's really true. The suffering disappears when resistance disappears, resistance to conditions. Tonight I wanted to talk about Sanzen. There are always so many questions about it, and I don't think I've ever given a talk on Sanzen, so it allows me to really ponder what are all the dimensions of it. The meaning of Sanzen is face-to-face Zen. Sanzen, face-to-face Zen. So if ever you wonder when you come into the Sanzen room, what is this about? Just show up with your very own face. And of course, once we think about that, we think about self-consciousness, which really is what comes up with Sanzen. It is a very intimate practice, and there's no hiding in Sanzen. And we know that immediately when we get in. You might wonder, well, why do we sit so close together? It's intentional. We actually don't even sit as close together as often one does, which is knee to knee with the teacher. We take a little bit of distance, 4 inches, cushion to cushion. What brings us to practice is a longing that brings all of us to practice. A longing to what? What is your longing for? Is it to relax, not be so stressed? Is it a longing to really feel as though your life is your own in some way that it doesn't seem to be? It's very, very personal. It's a very personal practice. And it feels pretty urgent for many people who come to practice. And so we offer Zazen, which is face-to-face with your own face, and Sanzen, which is face-to-face with a person who realistically has just been practicing for quite a while and may be helpful. That's what it comes down to. But it's also possible to think that you're facing Buddha, and the responsibility that's given to a teacher in transmission is to embody Buddha. And what that refers to is drop the personality self and all of the self-involvement, and be very, very open to whatever is arising, and respond in a way that is benevolent. And if it isn't actively benevolent, at least it does no harm. Right? We have those 3 wonderful pure precepts. The first is do no harm. And sometimes that's what we need. That's all we can do, is have the intention to do no harm, which calls on a bigger self that we all have. So Sanzen, part of Sanzen is to over the course of time, discover the larger self, the more inclusive self, the one that is not so occluded by mistaken identity, by mistaken ideas, by opinions, by fears, by impulses, by habits of all sorts. That's what we're doing. That's what the function of Sanzen is. Have anybody heard the word Dokusan? Dokusan is what's used in the Rinzai tradition, which bases training in koan practice. And so if you're working on a koan, when you go to Sanzen, you're going to Dokusan. But here, we don't work on koans. Some people do sometimes, but we are Sanzen. This is the term used in Soto Zen. Soto Zen is grandmotherly Zen. Rinzai Zen is grandfatherly Zen or muscle Zen. Different approaches. Same equipment, the human heart and the human mind. Different approaches. So when you come into Sanzen, you're bringing in what's most important to you. And in the course of the experience of Sanzen over time, you really get a look at what you bring into interactions and what your assumptions are about yourself, about the teacher, about the practice. Everything that we do in this practice is regarded as a skillful means, meaning that it is a tool. It is not an end in itself. In Zazen, we learn how to surrender into the moment, into the present. And that can take a very long time. It can take a very long time, or it can just be instantaneous. So Zazen is surrendering entirely to being right here. To being right here with whatever is filling the mind screen and filling the sensorium. Our thoughts of past, even the thought of present, the concept, the idea of the present moment. And definitely the future. I've spent a lot of my Zazen time planning or fearing, imagining the future in some way. Isn't it wonderful to know when you're doing that? So that's one of the things that comes out of Zazen no matter what, is you realize what your mind is doing, rather than just it driving the boat, Or you're sitting there criticizing yourself or other people, or chewing on a bone of dissatisfaction about something and wanting to escape. So a lot of time in Zazen, rather than discovering what surrender means, giving up, we just want to escape from whatever we're experiencing. I say we, I don't know, maybe you're not, but I certainly have. Spent many years trying to escape. And whenever I experience suffering now, I know from experience that I'm trying to escape something, and I can go to, okay, what is it that I'm not wanting to, I'm not wanting to be with here? It's very helpful. It helps me be more responsible, meaning more answerable for what I do, and also able to respond. So Zazen takes surrendering, and Sanzen is about support for this. We surrender to the truth of our interaction. You know, sometimes Sanzen is you come in and you present your state of mind. Well, the problem with that way of saying it is it's still a presentation. It doesn't have to be a presentation, it's a relationship. It's a relationship that becomes pretty intimate, the way it is when you're with a very close friend, somebody you trust, somebody who you feel really seen by and known by. So that's one of the possibilities in Sanzen. And it takes both the teacher and the student. It's a mirroring situation. To not separate, but to be truly of one heart mind, the way it is when you really feel seen and you really see. And think of all the things that can get in the way of being able to feel comfortable being seen. all of the ways that we can project our own criticisms, our own labels of ourselves, or the other person. So in Zazen, can I see myself? And in Sanzen, can I let you see me? And hopefully, you know, my aspiration in Sanzen is to always, we're always on the wheel of giver, receiver, and gift. And it is my hope, and I don't always feel that I'm successful with this or that it happens, but striving for offering something that can be useful. Bringing forth maybe some love where the heart is clenched and held off from the self. Or just some information. Sometimes information can be really helpful. If you come in and you're very caught up with an idea about something having to do with practice. I don't know, I'm not very good at meditating. I just can't stop my thinking mind. Now that's an idea. That you should stop your thinking mind, that the thinking mind can be stopped. Sometimes the thinking mind gets extremely quiet and maybe disappears for a bit. But that's not because you're trying to stop the mind. That's because it's one condition that can arise when the time is right, on its own. So seeing ourselves through others' eyes. If you've grown up in a home, in a family, or in a culture, or in a social set, which was filled with criticism, cynicism, anything that kind of attacks the sense of being safe, being yourself, then Sanzen can be pretty rough. And you may, like I have many times, dreaded going to Sanzen. That sense of dread. And hopefully over time, that kind of goes away. I had a lot of it because I had a very, very strong inner critic. Some people, I would puzzle. They would say, "Oh, I love Sanzen. I can't wait to go to Sanzen." I would, "Oh, you must have grown up being very safe." But hopefully that's what happens after a while, is you realize, oh, this is fun. I can just be myself. I don't have to perform. And sometimes I have insights into things that's really helpful. And sometimes I just feel confirmed in my own perception of things. So it functions every time differently, with each person differently. It's really helpful to do Sanzen with different teachers. It's really helpful to do Sanzen with the same teacher for a while. You can't go wrong. There's always stuff to be learned. It's never harmful when it is approached with the mind and heart of practice. It's one more wonderful tool that Zen practice offers. And this realizing our wholeness is the garden of Zen that we cultivate. You know, realizing the wholeness of our life, which is another way of saying the big self, not the small self. The small self often doesn't feel very whole. It feels really like something's missing. Something's wrong. Or if only. But when we experience wholeness, then no matter, even if circumstances are terrible, that wholeness is always present. It's one of the meanings of the identity of relative and absolute. The small self is the relative self that has come about over the course of our life and our experience, and our ancestors' lives and experience. And all the attitudes, the body issues, the habits of the attitudes about money, about sex, about beauty, about nutrition, politics. That's the relative self. And it doesn't go away, but our relationship to that really changes when we discover, oh, the self that is not in relation to all of those things, but is whole and complete always in this moment. And Sanzen, that's part of what that is all about, is helping us, tapping the experience of somebody else. We are not islands. It's part of the incredible treasure that is the Sangha. So we have formal Sanzen. Sanzen is a formal practice, but being in Sangha is you never know when you're going to have an exchange with a fellow practitioner in the Sangha that clears something up for you. That's how we show up for each other, with the same kind of love, tolerance, understanding, good listening. So one of the questions you hear in Sanzen is, well, how's your practice going? Well, you can say fine, or you can say, I have no idea how to answer that question. How do I evaluate my practice? Because we always say, don't judge your practice. Don't judge it. And then we ask a question like, how's it going? No. So if I ever say that to you when you come in, you say, no, no, no. We have these two wonderful teachers who are with us for the year. And I encourage you to come to Sanzen. When they return, they'll be back on Sunday nights. They'll be the ones offering. And you can appreciate just the difference in how each person, each relationship with each person is very unique. And that goes for Sanzen as well. There's no one way to do Sanzen. There's no one experience that you have in Sanzen. But we really get to know our shame, our dread. We get to know, hopefully, the feeling of relief that comes with a certain kind of support in practice. We get to see our fixed ideas, ask questions, particular questions about what certain things mean. Some people have said, I don't go to Sanzen because I don't want to waste your time. And I say, one, what do you mean by time? And what do you mean by waste my time? And why do you think that would be true? And so that tells me that that I need to be very warmly encouraging you to come, because there's no, using it well and not using it well. It's the same as, I don't want to waste my time on the cushion because I haven't been able to sit with a quiet mind. Well, that's silly, because that's how we make our discoveries, using the form. People have said, I don't feel worthy. I don't feel worthy, which is another way of saying I don't want to waste your time. And I say all of us are worthy. We all have a place in this world. And the most important thing with practice is showing up. Showing up to your life. Showing up to your practice. Showing up to what is important. And so the practice of Sanzen is just another form of showing up. Helps us understand what that means for us, what the possibilities are in our own practice. So I'd like to open up, if anybody has any comments or questions, just a few of those, if anything comes up here. Speaking of Sanzen. Oh, one more thing before we do that. So Thursday nights we do group Sanzen, and a number of you have come to that. And that's a wonderful way to maybe normalize the practice in a certain way, because we get to sit around and hear everybody's questions, everybody's dilemmas, everybody's clarity. Because, often people share what they've realized. That's great. So I encourage you to, if you have a Thursday night open, to join us for that. Yeah, any comments? I go.
What you said implies to me that one would not just show up to sunset and do that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. There are no problems. And there's nothing but problems. That's the first noble truth. Trouble. Right here in River City. Yeah, thank you.
How often can we do Sanzen? How often should we do Sanzen?
You can do Sanzen every time it's offered. So Thursday night, group Sanzen. Saturday morning, I offer Sanzen as part of Golden Hour. And then Sunday evening, now Sanzen is part of the Sunday program. And then Soten and Chine offer it.
Sanzen was Tuesday morning.
I think it was Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, Tuesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and then Sundays when they're in town. And then this week, well, if you're coming to Sesshin, and a number of you are, you'll be able to do Sanzen with Joman and Bancha, which is two other very different, wonderful people. So, yeah, so then.
Can newcomers or non-members participate in Sanzen?
Members first, and then when there's time, non-members. But it's one of the reasons to join, to become a member, so that we're always available for that. And then if you need to, sometimes people ask to meet for tea and have a little bit longer conversation. Sanzen tends to be somewhat short. Yes, Gina.
Are there inappropriate questions to ask of the teacher? What's those types of questions?
Nope. But what's notable is if you want to ask something but you feel like it's inappropriate, then that's good to bring up, because there's an idea there about what is appropriate and what is the basis of that. Is it safe? Is it true? You know, whatever underlies that. Vanessa.
What's the difference, would you say, between Sanzen and therapy?
Sanzen always has reference to, how do you practice with this? How do you practice with this? And it also doesn't say anything's a problem. So the combination of therapy for certain issues and Sanzen is terrific, because Sanzen really is helping you. It's empowering you to discover all of the dimensions of practice for yourself, so that it's always available to you. You always can work with anything with practice. But therapy is, one, you have a lot more time to delve into something, to look into it much more, in much more detail. It depends a lot on who you're working with as a therapist. But it is different. The Zen teacher is not always sympathetic if it doesn't seem to be useful to you. Whereas a therapist always has to stay warm, among other things. But it's in this very psychologically oriented culture, this is a very important question. And to clarify. And if you're seeing a Zen teacher who's also a therapist, you want to ask them that. I'm a therapist. I approach things pretty similarly with clients and with Zen, but not exactly the same, because it's what's it called, I'm blanking on the word, but it's important. The contract is a little different. I don't know if that was useful. Yeah.
Can you comment on healing trauma through Sanzen practice and specifically working with regret and a kind of lack of development? Sorry.
With working with trauma, using practice to work with trauma, and I say that practice does not necessarily help with trauma. Not in and of itself. It can actually deepen trauma and keep you wallowing in it. The important thing about trauma is to first of all to stop it from happening, and that's a therapeutic process, as opposed to sitting on a cushion and really feeling it just reinforces the trauma. So that's a really important thing to know, that in areas where there is trauma in your background, you may discover in practice that there is some trauma that you were not aware of that actually has influenced your life in ways. That's great, and you can work with the Zen teacher about that, but also you want to do some therapy on trauma. Because it's carried in the body, it's carried in the brain. There's a reason why we call it trauma, which is that it is seriously undermining development. Yeah. So therapy is really an important part of practice. Aiken Roshi always said that. This was years ago when I was with Aiken Roshi, and people were kind of shocked. Say, if you're a serious practitioner, you need to do some therapy. It's like, not because you need help if you're going to do practice, right? Not in that way. But because a lot of people have a lot of stuff in their history, otherwise you wouldn't come to Zen, actually. Zen, people who are joined to Zen have a lot that happened there. That, except for, my teacher Chozen has always said that she came to Zen not because of trauma, but because, is there anything else? Is there anything more to life? She was not a seriously traumatized person. And yet she's profoundly compassionate and wise, and has been practicing for many, many years. Thanks for asking the question. It's important. Yeah.
So with spiritual bypassing, I personally think I was doing that a lot around emotional work that needed to happen, and now that stuff's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And how to find that balance, I guess, is my question.
Spiritual bypass. Thank you. If there's anything that Sanzen is really helpful for, it's spiritual bypass. Because we can think, I'm filled with rage about something. Oh, but I'm so peaceful. It just going into deep denial about anything that's coming up. Or I'm practicing like crazy and still I'm deeply depressed, and I'm not practicing right, because if I were, I wouldn't feel depressed. That's a mistaken idea about practice. But trying to rise above is spiritual bypass. And the teacher will point that out. And that can be difficult. That can be difficult. So,
I feel like I've had some sort of realization that's made it better, but at the same time, there's all this just nasty emotional garbage in the mind, and it just keeps.
yeah. Yeah. Have a nice long life. Lots of time to work through a lot of that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody notice that things just keep coming up that you thought you were done with? It's like, oh no, but I've been practicing for 25 years. Yeah. That's the equanimity. That's the equanimity practice. Yeah, this too. This holding steady, learning how to hold steady in the face of one's own hard, difficult states. Well, let's bring this to a close. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody online. I forgot to greet you.